Warm greetings from Laie, Hawaii. My name is Jennifer Kajiyama Tinkham. I serve as the chair of the Religious Freedom and Human Dignity Initiative here at BYU Hawaii, and I get to teach as well in the Legal Studies program. I feel very privileged to moderate this session that is entitled, What Does an Inclusive and Dignified Version of Education Look Like in an Age of Artificial Intelligence? As we witness rapid advances in AI and in educational technology, we are invited to think very deeply about what we value, what we protect, and what we must design with care. And the question that the panelists will be embracing today is, how can we ensure that education remains human-centered, accessible, and grounded in dignity and inclusion as we embrace innovation? We are honored to hear from the following researchers and directors. I will now introduce our panelists. To my left is Dr. Mohamad Syafiq Borhannuddin. He is a fellow at the Center for Economics and Social Studies at IKIM in Malaysia. His research connects Islamic ethical frameworks with questions of technological advancement and inclusive education. Next to him, seated, is Dr. Siti Mazidah Mohamad, a director of the Center for Advanced Research at University Brunei Darussalam. Her work addresses educational inclusion, community development, and the digital transformation of education in Brunei and Southeast Asia. And finally, we have Eugene Yapp, a senior fellow at the Religious Freedom Institute in Malaysia. He has worked extensively at the intersection of law, policy, and religious freedom, and speaks on the ethical dimensions of emerging technology and its impact on educational equality. Right now, we will have each presenter speak, and then at the end, we will open it for questions. So we invite Dr. Syafiq to present.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. As we say in the Muslim community, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is the greeting of peace that the billion Muslims for 1,000 years have conveyed to all of you, to all of us in this world. I would like to begin by also paying tribute to the people of Hawaii for continuing to be an able and responsible stewards of this beautiful land. And of course, with much appreciation to the leadership of BYU, to your learned selves for hosting this beautiful gathering. It's my first time to not only Hawaii, but to the territory of the United States of America. And this, I think, is such, it shows that you're a wonderful representative of your country. So God bless you for having this to begin with. The point of departure of my humble sharing is from the Islamic philosophical and civilization tradition. Of course, it's more or less it's an attempt to convey what I understand from this long legacy. By Islamic philosophy, I do not mean merely the Aristotelian tradition, which Muslims have embraced and adopted and expanded and improved upon, but also based on the wisdom of the revelation that we have received through our messenger of God, the Prophet Mohamad, as well as the great wisdom of world religions and civilizations that we have encountered throughout the ages. If you have observed the discourses pertaining to AI in relation to education, perhaps one of the most questionable matters that people of all faith should pay attention to is the fact that the very definition of education today has been called into question by the proponents of AI, or those or the proponents of the fourth industrial revolution as a whole. This is because, as far as the religion of Islam, and I'm quite sure all the great religions of the world, we have established notions on what it means to be human, and as well as in relation to that, what it means to educate the human being in this world. Therefore, we should ask, is the education envisioned by the proponents of AI the future or the definition and the notion that we really affirm? For example, this is just an example. The renowned technologist Elon Musk once said that parents, this part we can agree with his statement, that when he said, parents will still be responsible for passing on moral principles and values to their children, but then this part we may have to be much more discerning about. When he said, but AI will transform education since it can easily act as a teacher. Indeed, Malaysia, like many nations worldwide, have joined in the artificial intelligence race. But then perhaps on this matter, it is something that for all of our nations can continue to consider about whether we must necessarily simply adopt uncritically what the meaning of education would mean in the age of AI. Can there be a more dignified vision of education in this age of AI, since the religion of Islam and people of other faiths would consider the human being in a more complete whole? By that I mean wherein we also affirm the reality of the soul. This is because in our times we have seen the dominance of proponents of the notion of man or human being in a more reductionist understanding. These are some of the examples. The renowned professor Steven Pinker, Harvard University, while he speaks of human nature, his assumption on human being has been reductionist. It only limits man to his physical reality. The famous Israeli intellectual Yuval Harari, in his book *Sapiens*, assumes that man is Homo sapien, no longer children of Adam, which people of faith, especially of the Abrahamic tradition, affirms. While someone like the historian Rutger Brigham speaks of humankind, a hopeful history, a compelling narrative, but then he also tends to assume this notion of human in a reductionist sense. In the case of Islam, and I'm sure many religions of the world, we still affirm that human being constitutes both the material and immaterial reality. We affirm the metaphysical reality of the soul. And if we were to define it more accurately, his man or human being is a living being that speaks. We have a specific definition to man. We still stick to it. In the Muslim intellectual tradition, in Arabic we call it al-hayawan al-natiq. We are children of Adam. Now, what would the implication of such point of departure be in terms of our vision of education? By and large, for the last 100 years or more in particular, we have seen the definition, the meaning and purpose of education chiefly aims at producing or nurturing a good citizen, which is not necessarily blameworthy in itself, but then it comes with it a network of or a set of assumptions which is blameworthy. For example, students are merely seen as customers. Of course, this is a byproduct of commercializing the whole educational enterprise. Therefore, education is envisioned modeled more after a factory model. Graduates of universities tend to have a specialized outlook rather than having a universal outlook, which is the purpose of university to begin with, hence the term university. And in the modern times, we see the reign of quantity, where quantity, the numbers of your results, the numbers of graduates is more emphasized rather than the quality. For the longest time, more than the time that this vision have espoused, the one that we are seeing on the good citizen classification. For the longest time in world history, the aim of education for many of the great religions of the world is to produce a good human being who will necessarily be a good citizen or a good worker. He is an heir of a tradition. He's not departing from people of the past. He's continuing the people of the past. The education will emphasize quality in terms of intelligence, in terms of virtue as well, in terms of character. Education is a lifelong journey, doesn't end within the four walls of the classroom, and it would produce a universal outlook. Therefore, he is able to be a cosmopolitan person. He's able to engage with people globally. We have a compelling example from Islamic civilization presently and in the past. One example I would like to show in Malaysia is a project, an initiative started by the government of Malaysia since the 90s. This is a postgraduate school called the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC. One of its aims is to preserve the authentic character of traditional schools along with its intimate master-disciple relation, ethical as well as intellectual guidance, oral transmission, and other basic elements of Muslim education, which I'm sure is agreed and shared upon with other great religions of the world. What would be a more balanced framing of vision of education in the age of AI without coming across as if we are dismissing the advancements of technology? First, at the heart of it, we would still need to retain that the goal is to somehow, he doesn't have to be a saint or a perfect man, but at the very least, he has to be a more human person, more inclined to humanity rather than more inclined to his animality reality. He should have the capacity to discern with the intellect, to discern in particular truth in relation to falsehood. Subsequently, then he should be able to be an active participant due to his discernment to address extremism of various forms, whether secular or religious extremism. And finally, he should have a more balanced outlook because of his universal outlook in relation to the humanities and the sciences, or STEM. In conclusion, the meaning and purpose of education should be defined in accordance with the religions and civilization's vision of reality and truth, or what contemporary authors would regard as a world view, a vision of reality and truth. Not by advancements of technology. We shouldn't allow changes of times redefine our basic fundamental positions. Number two, this does not mean we are being anti-technology or the developments of the age. By accepting this definition, this traditional definition, rather we seek to place the human being, knowledge, technology, and life as a whole in its proper places. Thus, an inclusive vision of education should include vision of education as defined by religions of the world and traditional philosophies of the world. For example, Confucianism and the Lao Tzu tradition of China, which will necessarily lead to the restoration of human dignity in the realm of education. Thank you.
Just double checking that everything is in order. Can you hear me well? All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and salam sejahtera. First of all, I want to say thank you so much to ICLRS BYU and also IKIM for inviting me to be here to talk about our vision of education and AI. This is, to be honest, a very difficult topic to talk about because there are various ways where we can approach this. Before I continue, I want to make a disclaimer that what I share here are my perspective and my approaches based on my research interests. So I do not represent the views of Brunei government, the Ministry of Education, and of course my university, University Brunei Darussalam. Okay, so let's begin. As the panelists for this session, we are asked, what does an inclusive and dignified vision of education look like in an age of artificial intelligence? So what it means to each of us may differ. For Dr. Syafiq earlier on, he was talking about Islamic philosophy. In my case, I have a different approach. I'm sure Mr. Eugene here has a different approach as well. As a scholar researching youth engagements with new media and popular culture for over a decade, I approach this question more from the social, cultural, and religious configuration, transformation angle, and consideration of the preservation of intellect. Since 2010, I have been studying how different groups of young people engage with Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It is fascinating to see the evolution of social media sites alongside young people's use of these sites, and most importantly, their transformation in various social, cultural, and religious configurations. I view digital technologies as cultural forms deeply embedded in social, cultural, religious, and political contexts. As we all know, technology is not used in a vacuum, but it is experienced through specific identities, emotions, and everyday realities. So we engage with technology not as passive users, but as social actors whose interactions with digital media are shaped by our histories, our values, as well as our aspirations. This is evident in how we consume social media sites. The evolution of social media is not just in the number and diversity of platforms, but also in how users create and consume content. Over a decade ago, when I studied Facebook for my PhD, now I sounded very old, my respondents were concerned about how they appeared to others through identity expressions. They were involved in identity management, making friends, learning how such a platform could expand their network and boosting their self-value and esteem through everyday sharing. Fast forward to when Instagram was created, we see individuals uploading snippets of their everyday life and the emergence of various types and genre of micro-celebrities or influencers, sharing relatable everyday life. So these sites as platforms for the mobility of cultures, viral trends, and challenges, and they have also become battlegrounds for ideological and epistemological warfare, easily done using fun and ephemeral content. Just imagine yourself doing this. It's very quick. You get so much information there. The digital environment is characterized by a dynamic and participatory culture, where user-generated content plays a central role in shaping discourse and engagement. The ephemeral nature of much of this content, such as viral trends, influencers' posts, or phenomena like blind boxes, often carries significant social and cultural impact. Digital spaces are not neutral. They are emotionally charged and deeply embedded with power relations, ideological struggles, and uneven representations. While many users demonstrate high levels of digital literacy in navigating and producing content, this often coexists with a pervasive fear of missing out, FOMO, that fuels the rapid spread of trends and information. Importantly, the use of social media, it is not detached from local realities. In many national contexts, including Brunei, digital practices are closely tied to social norms and community expectations, reflecting the interplay between online expression and offline cultural values. On that note, I am particularly concerned with how emerging digital phenomena such as deepfake, fake news, memes, misinformation, and disinformation on social media reshape public discourse, and how these are further exacerbated by algorithm-driven echo chambers and filter bubbles, misleading and fragmenting audience and public understanding. AI-driven platforms like TikTok and Instagram are deeply entangled with identity, ethics, and social-cultural transformation. So these platforms don't just reflect society, they actively shape religious practices, cultural performances, cultural experiences, and moral imaginaries. Considering this ontology about young people, digital media, and the emerging issues, my vision of an inclusive and dignified vision of education is an education where educators, leaders, and students collaborate in creating ethical digital futures. So a digital future here is where digital technology, including social media and AI, are used ethically for the betterment of the world's communities. So this could be, I hope, could be achieved through contextualized and dynamic digital media literacy. So therefore, my approach moves beyond focusing on digital literacy as mere technical know-how or functional use of digital technologies and tools. As a foundational component of digital citizenship, DML needs to be reframed. This involves technical proficiency and the ability to critically engage with AI technologies, broader socio-cultural, religious, and political implications. So DML must encompass the capacity to question information, sources, credibility, and reliability, and to understand how these are entangled with power, ideology, as well as discourse. So it also requires moving from a view of digital media as merely a youth space for fun and entertainment to one that recognizes its role in shaping political consciousness, ethical reasoning, and cultural expression. Central to this is young people's everyday engagement with new media and popular culture, domains where meaning, identity, and agency are negotiated in algorithmic and media-saturated environment. Furthermore, there is a growing concern that AI could shift from being a tool of empowerment to one of control. At the same time, young people risk remaining passive consumers of AI-generated content rather than stepping into roles as critical and active agents of digital transformation. In this context, we as individuals, societies, and even ASEAN nations are particularly vulnerable to digital colonialism, where external powers shape and dominate the governance of AI and technology across the region. Recognizing these challenges, ASEAN has initiated various regional frameworks to strengthen member states' capacities in fostering digital literacy and talent development. I'm sure a few of you here are aware of all this framework. For instance, ASEAN Digital Economic Framework Agreement emphasizes the cultivation of digital talent as a foundational pillar of digital transformation. Complementing this, the framework for developing regional digital readiness among ASEAN citizens and the ASEAN Declaration on Human Resources Development for the Changing World of Work and its roadmap reflect a concerted effort to align digital preparedness with broader socio-economic transition. To address the growing threat of digital disinformation, ASEAN has also developed the ASEAN Guideline on the Management of Government Information in Combating Fake News and Disinformation in the Media, alongside establishing the ASEAN Task Force on Fake News. So these initiatives underscore the region's awareness of the geopolitical and epistemic stakes involved in the digital era. Moreover, ASEAN has launched a range of targeted programs, as you can see here. So these initiatives collectively aim to enhance digital competencies, particularly among youth, and support the region's aspiration to develop a digitally resilient and future-ready society. So these are commendable regional efforts, but I won't be dwelling into each of them in this 15 minutes presentation. While current initiatives primarily emphasize digital skills for workforce readiness and formal learning, there's a pressing need to engage with DML and AI literacy as a broader civic, ethical, and cultural competency that empowers individuals, especially youth, to navigate and shape AI-driven environments in their everyday lives critically. So this is particularly true in social media environments where we have saturation of ephemeral content from various sources and contexts. We all know digital technologies, specifically AI, are disruptive as well as transformative. So how do we make it benefit us more? Are we preparing ASEAN's youth to be active agents in shaping their digital future? ASEAN's broader strategies to promote media and information literacy, MIL, underscore the importance of fostering critical thinking, digital discernment, and civic responsibility. The strategies include 1, developing educational resources such as curricula and lesson plans, 2, providing workshops and training to enhance media evaluation skills, 3, supporting research to empirically assess the societal impacts of MIL and inform evidence-based policymaking, 4, fostering partnership between media organizations, educators, and researchers, and integrating MIL principle into the broader policy and regulatory framework as the final one. So the third one, supporting research, is where academics such as myself can contribute massively. The emphasis on research is particularly crucial in informing ASEAN's evolving digital literacy strategies by supporting empirical studies on the impact of media literacy, for example, on different demographic groups. So ASEAN not only grounds its initiative in context-specific insights, but also enhance regional capacity to respond rapidly to rapidly changing digital and geopolitical landscapes. So this research-based approach enables more nuanced understanding of how digital media circulates, how misinformation is received, and how different communities develop resilience or vulnerability within these flows. So in Brunei Darussalam, we are also committed to this. Just to show you some examples here, we recently launched this Artificial Intelligence Governance and Ethics for Brunei Darussalam, specifically for institutions and government agencies. From the Ministry of Education, we also have this recently launched Digital Citizenship Handbook for the school community. So for me, tackling these emerging issues with AI, not just within the AI, with AI, but then even before that, requires reframing existing DML. In academia, we have calls for reframing, rethinking existing media or digital literacy. So it is insufficient to focus on tech know-how, but to understand the context and practices of the society and the users. Technology, social media, as I said earlier on, they are indeed cultural forms. We don't simply use it as a robot, for example. We have our own context, our own experiences. So alternative epistemologies or epistemological framework, including Islamic epistemologies, as you mentioned earlier, Islamic ethics, which will be covered, I think he did cover Islamic ethics, such as the concept of, like truth-seeking, verification, and fact-checking, transparency, beneficial knowledge, and justice could be adopted here. So other approaches such as post-normal times theory by Professor Sardar, systems thinking, as well as foresight approaches are also essential for navigating today's complex digital landscapes. So these frameworks encourage critical reflection on uncertainty, complexity, as well as the multiplicity of futures. However, there are matters to consider here operationally. The first one is representations play a crucial role in this context. Educators are responsible for exposing students to diverse values, worldviews, as well as ideologies, and fostering critical awareness of how knowledge is being shaped and circulated. But how do we do this, especially in a saturated environment where trends evolve swiftly? For the younger audience here, I'm sure you have heard of the penguin dance. You have heard of Gilby trend and blind boxes. So how do we teach them all these fast-moving trends? They are in and out quickly. The second one, evaluating online content must go beyond verifying factual accuracy. It also requires a deep interrogation of digital narratives, sociocultural, religious, as well as political implications. So this task, particularly challenging for our younger audience, increasingly immersed in fast-paced and visually persuasive content and platforms such as TikTok. So as I said earlier, everything is very quick. My 9-year-old usually, watch TikTok videos with me. So what we do is usually quick swipe, swipe, swipe. And she'll ask some questions about it, and I have to be there to explain it to her. But imagine young kids without, their parents there explaining to them what the content means. They're just swiping through. It's very quick, and they get all those information, but they don't know the narratives behind each of those TikTok videos. So these are the things that we might want to consider. Today it's TikTok, tomorrow it could be something else, and new content could be created. So at the moment, please don't ask me about Maqasid al-Sharia. I'm still learning about it. There are so many things I don't understand about it. But I'm currently exploring a contextualized DML to check whether a multi-sectoral Maqasid Sharia-based digital media literacy framework for Brunei could be developed. So here, Islamic ethics can be considered in navigating the complexity, contradictions, and chaos of today's world saturated with digital media and AI. So this work is grounded on several research questions. The first one is, what form of digital media literacy framework can be developed for Brunei that is policy relevant, community driven, and future oriented, enhancing resilience against misinformation, fostering ethical digital engagement, and aligning with national social culture and governance needs? What are Brunei's key ethical considerations when engaging with digital media? And the last one, how can Maqasid al-Sharia inform the development of Brunei's digital media literacy framework? Operationally, digital media literacy encompasses multidimensional competencies essential for navigating, understanding, and shaping digital landscapes. So it begins with access and participation, ensuring equitable digital access, fostering technological skills, and promoting inclusivity across diverse communities. Beyond basic access, digital media literacy requires the ability to analyze and evaluate content critically. So this includes understanding media representations, questioning the influence of algorithm, and cultivating critical thinking. Equally important is the capacity for creation and production, where individuals actively generate content and construct narratives that reflect their experiences and perspectives. So this is where the young people can come in as co-collaborator. These practices embed digital ethics and responsibility principles, including respect for privacy, data protection, cyber ethics, and digital well-being, Finally, digital media literacy extends to digital citizenship and governance, encouraging civic engagement, political participation, and an informed awareness of regulatory frameworks and rights in digital spaces. So it's beyond me to present, it's beyond this 15 minutes presentation to discuss this. So I want to end this talk with a question. How can we make contextualized digital media literacy become the bridge between AI and human dignity and in realizing ethical digital futures? Moving beyond digital literacy or technical know-how, we need contextualized policy pathways or framework to empower youth as agents of information integrity. So I argue for the need to establish youth-centered digital media literacy frameworks, and we can empower young people to shape global information landscape through their ethical practices. So I end my presentation here, and also would like to promote my first book. The editor's series editor is at the back, Professor Khairuddin Al-Junaid. Thank you.
Good morning to each and every one of you. Once again, thank you, Professor Shah, for having us here again at this lovely place. It's already a couple of times I've been here, but certainly each time I enjoy the hospitality and the presence here. Unlike my two other fellow colleagues and panelists, I'm not an academic. I'm more of a practitioner. And therefore, in line with that, I like to speak more from a praxis approach, summarizing also some of the points that my colleagues have shared. Initially, I had thoughts of sharing slightly different content, but hearing the two of my colleagues speak, I would like to draw from some of their thoughts and then summarize some of their thoughts into practical implications by way of question for us as we think about dignity in an AI environment and how education can contribute positively to this AI environment. I like to start by just make a sharing of a recent experience that I had in Geneva just last month. Professor Kodaram and Professor Sharp was with me at that gathering. It was a gathering called the Article 18 Alliance, or what was commonly known as the International Religious Freedom Alliance of States. And we served together, Professor Sharp and Professor Kodaram and myself, we served together as part of the Council of Experts. During the gathering in March last month, we had the occasion to discuss the AI, the impact of AI, not so much on economy, not so much on the environment, but on human rights. On human rights, how does AI impact human rights? And that conversation surprised me. We are not talking about AI in terms of education only. We are not talking about AI in terms of technology. We are not talking about AI in terms of legal advancement, but we are talking about AI on human rights. So that is the extensive discussion that AI interest has generated. And as I reflect on that conversation in Geneva last month, and together with what I heard this morning, several questions emerged for us, and I like to summarize those questions for us as we think about education and education policy in an AI environment. Firstly, and I frame this question in the form of ethics. What sort of ethics should we adopt as we think about education in an AI environment? By ethics, I have in mind the disposition, a very general definition of ethics, disposition for right conduct, good conduct. And I like to frame our consideration this morning in three areas, three ethical areas. Firstly, I call it the ethics of responsibility, the ethics of responsibility. And in this area, the question is, who is going to be responsible for educating or regulating or ensuring content generation and dissemination? Who is responsible? I say this because recently all of you who are well versed in the AI world would know that Facebook has come up with a policy to decensorship content in their platforms. That means they no longer censor, they no longer monitor, they no longer regulate contents in Facebook. So you can actually post anything in Facebook. The only regulation to content, as far as Facebook is concerned, is what is called community regulation. That means the community of people regulates it on behalf of Facebook and what you post. So who then is responsible in this age of AI in terms of content? And this impinges on education. Is it going to be the service providers like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram? Or is it going to be the community, as was suggested by the, the creator of Facebook? Or do we now look to government? In human rights language and parlance, we always say that government should not be involved in too much of regulation. Limited regulation is better for human rights. The logic being is that more regulation, it stifles human rights. But in the case of this AI generative content that we see in public, much of the discussion right now is towards government. So is government going to come into the place of regulating? And if we are talking about regulations by government, do we promote regulations or do we promote deregulation? And so, hence the question, the ethics of responsibility. Now, if we are going to place that responsibility on the individual, the self, the person, the young people in our midst, then the question here is, it's our young people in our midst responsible enough, or do they have the capacity to be able to be responsible to regulate their own content? A big question, some of which my colleagues have already addressed. Secondly, the ethics of, I call it the ethics of right, not just good. The ethic of right and not just good. Now, much of what we see today in the world of AI, there is a lot of undoubtedly feel-good factors. Factors that, well, serve this to be good, that to be good, this to be good, and so on. But as we know in life, what is good may not be right. What is good may not be right. And so, goods and rights must then go hand in hand. And as already highlighted by my fellow panelists, the good and right cannot be determined by technological input. We all know that the AI is basically algorithm created, of course with the innate capacity for learning. But would our young people in our midst now say and decide what is right, what is good, or what is right and good merely from the AI? I am told today that in the university, at least law is concerned and religion is concerned, much of what we learn today, if you are a Christian, you do not learn from the Bible, but you learn from ChatGPT. Because ChatGPT has all the answers, Christianity, the question towards Christianity, and I'm sure it applies to the other religion. So what is right, what is good cannot just be from technological algorithm input. Community life matters. Tradition of community life matters. So the big question here is, how does community life as a whole, together with inherited traditions, respected traditions from religious groups and so on, intersect and interact with the individual as they learn what is good and what is right? Thirdly, and the third point is this, the third and final point is this, what I would call the ethics of integrity. The ethics of integrity. As we know, AI is algorithm-generated input, but with an innate capacity of learning. There is now, as I interact with some of the major AI developers in my country, in Malaysia, there is now what we call an AI race. Microsoft will want to come up with a better AI capacity. Facebook may want to come up with their own. Google may want to come up with their own. So the logic being is each of these developers comes up with a more superior form of AI that could cater to the complexity of modern life. Contrast this with people like Jensen Huang, who thinks from NVIDIA, who thinks that the better approach is to decentralize AI technological design. That means each country, each community design their own AI to suit their more contextual cultural needs. Now, in this race, whether you take it from the Google, Microsoft approach or Jensen Huang's NVIDIA approach of a decentralized AI, the question for policymakers is simply this. What then would be the best tool? What would be the best architectural design? And in looking at the best architectural design, shouldn't then we input on what we call moral questions, ethical questions? Where does the question of moral input, ethical question even have a place in this architectural design tool for a better AI? Much of these designers are looking at it from the point of view of technological, architectural advancement, the best design, the best chip, and so on. But in designing this, as far as education policy is concerned, should we now then input to these designers, moral consideration, religious tradition consideration, and so on? This requires not just discourse, conversation, but deep-seated engagement of an honest kind. A big question that I'm not sure, but as I see the landscape, much of this technological tech company, they have not begun this conversation with any religious groups, or if they have, to what extent. So, ladies and gentlemen, 3 questions that I post before you this morning as we consider education outlook in an AI generative environment, the ethics of responsibility, the ethics of rights and not just good, and the ethics of integrity. Thank you.